Good morning. Welcome to the first post-cabinet briefing of 2026. This is the statement of the cabinet for the cabinet meeting that took place yesterday on Wednesday, the 25th of February 2026. On the issues from the environment, on SONA 2026, fixing what we must to rise together, Cabinet committed to the timeless implementation of the commitments made by the President Ramaphosa during the 2026 State of the Nation Address and the SONA debate replies. The SONA 2026 prioritized addressing key challenges that still confront the country despite firm progress in the economic front as confirmed by continuously improving economic indicators. These challenges are A. National water crisis, B. Foot and mouth disease, C. Organized crime and weakened criminal justice system, D. A weak local government system, and E. Unemployment. On the water crisis, the President will chair a water crisis committee that will consolidate and coordinate all interventions aimed at resolving South Africa's water challenges. The Water Crisis Committee will finalize a water action plan that will focus on short, medium, and long-term interventions required to ensure that water flow from the taps. To stabilize water supply in Gauteng, the Minister of Water and Sanitation has approved an urgent water use license for Rand Water to abstract additional water from the integrated Vaal River system for 3 months, enabling municipalities to stabilize reservoir levels. On the fight against organized crime and weakened criminal justice system, it is being undertaken through a multi-pronged strategy. This strategy includes the implementation of the National Organized Crime Combat Plan, which is also reinforced through the deployment of SADF in gang-ridden hotspots and the decontamination of the criminal justice network system of compromised elements through the revetting of members and the Metro Police. The revetting includes lifestyle audits. The vetting plan will be submitted to the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence. In addition, a dedicated task team within SAPS has been established to investigate evidence of criminality against senior SAPS members implicated in the Matlanga Commission. On the 2026 national budget, the 2.67 trillion rands budget, Cabinet welcomed the 2.6 trillion rands budget of 2026, which funded the commitments made by the President in the SONA. To support the fight against crime, the Minister of Finance added 2.7 billion over the MTEV to the defense budget to improve operations, and an additional 1 billion each were allocated to the South African Police Service and the South African National Defence Force from Kara Fund to fight against organized crime. To support the local government reforms to ensure service delivery, the Minister of Finance announced the 27.7 billion rands over the MTEV for a performance-linked reform for metro trading entities in electricity, water, and solid waste. The aim of the reform is to ensure ring-fencing of water and electricity revenues to enable reinvestment in the services before any cross-subsidization. In addition, the Minister announced the introduction of the split delivery model for municipal infrastructure grant, commonly known as the MIG, where municipalities with serious service delivery or governance failures will be shifted to an indirect service model. The indirect service model will result in capable district municipalities and other accredited implementing agencies to form part of their infrastructure delivery suite. The budget also brought tax relief to households and small businesses by withdrawing 20 billion rands in tax increases that were provisionally included in the 2025 May budget, adjusting personal income tax brackets and rebates fully in line with inflation, and increasing compulsory VAT registration threshold from 1 million rands to 2.3 million rands. Cabinet reiterated its commitment to prudent fiscal management, the reform agenda, and speedy implementation of interventions and programs that have resulted in the narrowing of the budget deficit and the steady economic growth that made the budget 2026 possible. Steady progress in the fight against unemployment. Cabinet welcomed the results of the 2025 Q4 quarterly labor force survey as released by Statistics South Africa, which show that unemployment decreased by 0.5 percentage point to 31.4% in the fourth quarter of 2025 from 31.9% in the previous quarter. The number of unemployed persons decreased by 172,000 to 7.8 million unemployed persons, while employment increased by 44,000 in quarter 4 of 2025 to 17.1 million employed persons. This marks the third consecutive quarter of growth in employment, and it is encouraging that vital sectors such as construction, finance, and agriculture recorded high growth rates. Economic transformation and progress imperatives. Cabinet supported the President's SONA pronouncement that it is unacceptable that 31 years into democracy, Black Africans, Coloureds, and Indians continue to have fewer economic opportunities than white people, and it's unacceptable that women earn less than men, and this is women of all races. Data from Statistics South Africa confirms that between 2006 and 2023, Black African households experienced real income growth of 46%, colored households at 29%, and Indian households at 19%. The level of poverty in Black African population fell from 67% in 2006 to 44% in 2023, while the level of poverty in the colored population fell from 43% to 25% over the same period. Notwithstanding this progress, Cabinet acknowledged that average income of white households remains 5 times higher than that of Black households. In this regard, Cabinet welcomed the imminent review of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Framework to ensure that it supports greater transformation and inclusive growth. On Black households now constituting 41% of high-income bracket, Cabinet recognized the findings of the University of Cape Town's Liberty Institute of Strategic Marketing based on Stats SA data, which demonstrate the proportion of Black households earning more than 75,000 a month climbed to 41% in 2024, from 29% in 2012. The number of Black South Africans in middle and upper income brackets earning more than 22,000 a month quadrupled to more than 7 million in 2024. Overall, the total number of people in those income groups rose from approximately 4 million to more than 11 million between 2012 and 2024. Rising Black remuneration is progressively transforming the racial profile of South Africa's higher income brackets. This is a direct dividend of 31 years of democratic transformation through programs such as employment equity and Black economic empowerment. This progress is made in a country that was shaped by institutionalized inequality, where the Black majority was systematically discriminated against during colonial and apartheid rule, and earnings were once based on one's race. Through government's transformation programs, amongst others, we have changed this. Cabinet also appreciates that this progress is still not proportional to the demographic representation of South Africa's population. Black South Africans still predominate the ranks of the poor and working poor, and millions still live in poverty. On South Africa resuming local vaccine production to curb outbreak of FMD and return the country to disease-free status, the Agricultural Research Council, commonly known as the ARC, and the On-the-Spot Veterinary Research, known as the OVR, resumed production of the foot and mouth disease FMD vaccines in over 20 years. The first batch of locally produced FMD vaccines were handed over on Friday, 6 February 2026. This milestone will contribute to urgent steps to curb the outbreak of the FMD, currently ravaging over 14 million livestock in the country and causing untold devastation to the farming community. Cabinet is confident that the rebuilding of local vaccine production capacity within the state-owned ARC and OBP will also contribute to the goal of reclaiming South Africa's FMD-free status from the World Organization for Animal Health. Cabinet extends its appreciation to the farming community who have worked tirelessly to complement efforts of the Department of Agriculture to curb the current outbreak of FMD. Improved crime statistics, indication of steady progress in the fight against crime. The South African Police Service released the Quarter 3 2025-26 crime statistics on 20th February 2026 with a national crime picture justifying a cautious, evidence-based optimism, whilst most work still needs to be done. On murder, the downward trend that began in Q1 of 2023-24 has been sustained, with a recorded 8.7% decrease, representing 602 fewer lives lost compared to the same period last year. Over 2 years, murder for this quarter period has dropped by 17.6%, translating to 1,359 fewer murders. Double-digit reductions in murder were recorded in 5 provinces, which are KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Free State, and the Northwest. Smaller decreases in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape, while slight increases were recorded in Limpopo and Northern Cape. Of the 30 highest murder precincts nationally, only 15 recorded decreases. This confirms that while national trends improve, targeted community-level interventions remain essential. Cabinet is very concerned about the notable increase in the murder of police officials in this quarter. 23 officers lost their lives, with approximately 80% killed while off duty. The National Commissioner of the South African Police Service has been tasked with a full assessment to prevent these deaths. The total contact crime, encompassing all categories of violent crime, decreased by 6.7%, representing 12,682 fewer cases reported to SAPS compared to the same quarter last year. Over 2 years, total violent crime for this quarter is down 8.3%, or 15,763 cases. This trend is attributable in part to enhanced policing operations. The SIU report on Home Affairs visas. When President Ramaphosa signed the proclamation authorizing the Special Investigating Unit, commonly known as the SIU, to investigate allegations of corruption and fraud in the visa application processes on 16 February 2024, the aim was to safeguard the integrity of South Africa's official documents and the immigration system. Cabinet commended the SIU for its work that will assist Home Affairs to close outstanding gaps and ensure all perpetrators are brought to justice. Cabinet also commended the Department of Home Affairs for the progress made in strengthening the country's immigration system since the initial allegations of fraud and corruption were discovered. Return of the 15 of the 17 young men who were lured to join Russian front lines. The South African government, working closely with the Russian government, has secured a safe return of the men between the ages of 20 to 39 years who were lured to join the Russian front lines. This followed receipt of distress calls for assistance to return home from 17 South African men. Cabinet joined President Ramaphosa in expressing gratitude to President Vladimir Putin, who responded positively to the call of President Ramaphosa to support the process of retaining South African men who were lured into the battle lines between Russia and Ukraine. All 17 men have been released from their contracts. The contracts they signed with military contractors. 15 of the men are back in South Africa, whilst 2 remain in Russia, with 1 in hospital, and the other 1 is being processed before finalizing his travel arrangements. Investigations are ongoing into the circumstances that led to the recruitment of these young men and the violation of South African laws. 𝐾𝐽 minerals mine accident. The Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, together with the Northern Cape Premier and Solplaki Executive Mayor, visited the 𝐾𝐽 Minerals joint shaft mine in Kimberley, where a mud rush accident occurred on the 17th of February 2026, which resulted in 5 employees being trapped underground. All operations at the mine have been suspended as an intensive rescue operation continues. Once the rescue operation is completed, the department will conduct a formal investigation in line with the Mine Health and Safety Act to determine the cause of the accident. The DMPR team, led by the Chief Inspector of Mines, remains on site to monitor and support the rescue efforts. The government has commended mining companies and Minerals Council South Africa for their assistance in supporting the rescue mission. The affected families are receiving ongoing communication. The government's thoughts and prayers are with the families of the affected employees as the rescue efforts continue. On international relations, the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly President Ramaphosa led a high-level South African delegation to the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, which took place from the 14th to the 15th of February 2026. Convened on water and sanitation under the theme Assuring Sustainable Water Availability and Safe Sanitation Systems to Achieve the Goals of Agenda 2063. The focus directly aligns with South Africa's priorities and the SONA's domestic crisis agenda and bolsters continental efforts to support access to sustainable water and sanitation services. President Ramaphosa also attended and chaired the AU Ad hoc High-Level Committee for South Sudan, the C5 Plus Summit. The C5 plays a key role as an overseer on the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. South Africa, as interim chairperson of SADC, prepares to host the 46th SADC Summit. South Africa, as interim chair of the Southern African Development Committee, has started preparations towards the 46th SADC Summit in August 2026 by hosting sectoral meetings. In this regard, South Africa successfully hosted the joint meeting of the Ministers of Health and other ministers responsible for HIV and AIDS within SADC from the 23rd to the 24th of February 2026, with the attendance of the World Health Organization, the UNAIDS, UNDP, UNESCO, UNFPA, UNICEF, and UNICEF representatives. The meeting discussions reviewed health issues and disease outbreak coordination. In addition, South Africa will host SADC Council of Ministers meetings from the 12th to the 13th of March 2026, which will be attended by ministers from 15 SADC member states, and this will be preceded by the meetings of the Standing Committee of senior officials. South Africa-China Economic Partnership. Cabinet was briefed on the signing of the South Africa-China Economic Partnership Agreement for Shared Prosperity as part of the Southern Africa's Customs Union and China trade relations, which included negotiations on the Early Harvest Agreement, which will unlock 100% duty-free market access for African countries that have diplomatic relations with China. In addition, South Africa will, on the 25th of March 2026, host the 13th South Africa-China Strategic Dialogue, which will provide a structured high-level platform for both countries to review, align, and advance the implementation of their bilateral relations, and to reaffirm the all-round strategic cooperative partnership through regular diplomatic engagement. On the 26th of March 2026, Deputy President, His Excellency Paul Mashatile, will co-chair the 9th South Africa-China Binational Commission, which aims to review and advance the strategic bilateral cooperation, align priority sectors, and deepen political, economic, and technical collaboration between the two countries. On cabinet decisions, progress on the implementation of the President's response to the recommendations of the State of Capture Commission. Cabinet approved the progress on implementing the actions from the recommendations of the Judicial Commission into allegations of state capture, corruption, and fraud for submission to Parliament. By November 2025, assets recovered in relation to the allegations of the state of capture, corruption, and fraud stood at 16.432 billion rands. And South Africans have bemoaned that we spent R1 billion for the commission, but we have now, even when we're not finished the implementations, we have recovered 16.4 billion rands. It's a significant return on the investment. This breakdown of the recoveries as follows. Special Investigating Unit has recovered 2.89 billion rands. Asset Forfeiture Unit recovered 8.14 billion rands. And the South African Revenue Services recovered 5.4 billion rands. Progress on reforms include 1. The Public Service Amendment Bill and Public Management Amendment Bill, which are with the President for assent. 2. An overseeing judge has been appointed for the Directorate Against Corruption, commonly known as IDEC. 3. South Africa has been removed from the FATF grey list. 4. The report of the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel has been tabled to Parliament. 5. The draft Whistleblower Protection Bill will soon be processed through Cabinet. And 6. The Central Register for Dismissed Official is in consultation stages for concurrence purposes. To date, 57% or 34 of the 60 actions have been completed. 18% or 11 of the 60 of the actions are on track. 23% or 14 of the 60 actions are delayed, but work is progressing, and only 2%, which translate to one action, requires attention. Foot and mouth disease control strategy. Cabinet was briefed about the scale and severity of the foot and mouth disease in South Africa. Cabinet approved the proposal to implement a national mass vaccination program for cloven-hoofed animals as a core containment and recovery measure. The vaccination program will cover the national herd of approximately 14 million cattle, which will require an estimated 28 million vaccines over the next 12 months. The mass vaccination program will be supported by central procurement to ensure correct vaccines for the circulating strain. The strategy details the vaccination prioritization of provinces in line with the extent of the outbreak. KwaZulu-Natal have already announced that they will be commencing with the vaccination because KwaZulu-Natal is the epicenter of the FMD outbreak in South Africa. Cabinet was informed that 2 million vaccines are available to kick off the vaccination, and Cabinet appeals to farmers to observe the movement control measures in place as effective measurement to limit the spread of the disease. The National Evaluation Policy Framework 2025. Cabinet approved the National Evaluation Policy Framework 2025, which updates the evaluation policy to remain relevant and fit for purpose. The Policy Framework 2025 strengthens the process of setting targets and outcomes whilst factoring in evaluation reviews in the annual performance plans and develops comprehensive management mechanisms on non-performance and incentivizing good performance. The second national report on the implementation of new urban agenda. Cabinet approved the second national report on the implementation of the new urban agenda for submission to the UN. The report provides inputs for global reporting on new urban agenda implementation on the areas such as national progress and challenges related to sustainable urban development for social inclusion and ending poverty. 2, the state of the nation on sustainable and inclusive urban prosperity. 3, environmental sustainability and resilient urban development, including governance, planning, financial frameworks, and institutional capacity. Cabinet also approved that the Minister of Human Settlements develops a strategy to address the construction of informal structures in dangerous, disaster-prone locations, including medium to long-term solutions for temporary residential units, commonly known as the TRUs. Government Sexual and Reproductive Justice Strategy for South Africa. Cabinet approved the Sexual and Reproductive Justice Strategy for South Africa. The strategy pursues a rights-based sexual and reproductive justice framework anchored in the Constitution. The strategy aims to ensure all individuals, particularly women, youth, the marginalized groups, have the power and resources to make healthy decisions about their bodies, sexuality, and reproduction. On bills, the first bill is the Special Pensions Amendment Bill 2026. Cabinet approved the submission of the Special Pensions Amendment Bill to Parliament. The bill repeals the Special Pensions Act 63 of 1996 to provide for the retention of benefits that have been determined before the lapsing of certain provisions. It allows persons who qualify for more than one benefit to be granted the most advantageous benefit to ensure fairness and consistency in the administration of special pensions. The bill makes provisions for the right of surviving spouses or beneficiaries to receive a survivor's lump sum benefit in respect of persons who have died or are presumed dead in law. The amendments are further designed to address administrative gaps and expand eligibility in recognition of the sacrifices made by individuals in the establishment of South Africa's democratic order. Labor Laws Amendment Bill 2025. Cabinet approved the publication of the Labour Laws Amendment Bill for public comments. The bill seeks to modernize and strengthen South Africa's labour law framework by amending the Labour Relations Act No. 8 of 2018 and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act No. 7 of 2018, as well as revisions to the National Minimum Wage Act No. 9 of 2018 and Employment Equity Act No. 55 of 1998. It aims to enhance worker protection, ensure alignment with constitutional rights to equality and dignity, improve enforcement of employment standards, and clarify dispute resolution mechanisms. The bill strengthens protection for vulnerable and non-standard workers while maintaining an appropriate balance with employers' operational requirements. The bill gives effect to the Constitution by promoting fair labor practices, social justice, and inclusive economic participation. The last bill is the Labour Relations Amendment Bill 2025. Cabinet approved the publication of the Labour Relations Amendment Bill for public comments. The bill seeks to modernize and strengthen the labour relations framework by introducing clearer rules on closed shop ballots, limiting the automatic extension of bargaining council agreements to certain new business, and regulating the funding and financial reporting of bargaining councils, trade unions, and employers' organizations. Proposed amendments aim to strike an appropriate balance between increased flexibility for employers and enhanced protection for workers. The bill proposes measures to streamline dispute resolution processes, cap compensation for high-earning employees, and refine retrenchment procedures. Appointments. All appointments are subject to verification of qualifications and relevant security clearances. Mr. Mpumelelo Ngqongqo as the Director of the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, commonly known as the CCMA. Appointment of directors on the Board of Air Traffic Navigation Services, Mr. Zolama Javu, which is a reappointment, and he's appointed as the chairperson. Ms. Doris Dondu, which is a reappointment. Ms. Zandile Matilda Nkabini, Ms. Mapila Angelina Serute, Mr. Peter Marais, and Mr. Badisa Mutsikho, Ms. Boni Patricia Beauty Dibate, Mr. Bohonok Tula Fitla, Mr. Ashley Lachu, and Mr. Mohammed Wasif Ismail. Appointment of directors on the board of the South African National Roads Agency Limited, commonly known as SANRAL, Mr. Potas Tamsanqa Phili as the chairperson, Ms. Refile Buthelezi, reappointment, Dr. Ismail Vadi, Mr. Orateng Yvonne Mutswai, and Ms. Rochelle Blo. Appointment of directors on the board of South African Civil Aviation Authority, Advocate Mpati Maschaba Libakeng as the chairperson, and it's a reappointment, Mr. Mankopane Daniel Tsepo Pierre as a reappointment, Ms. Chichi Piwa, a reappointment and a departmental representative, Ms. Lindiwe Mama Shela, and Ms. Gloria Zanelenkos. Events and conferences. Hosting of Live Golf South Africa event at the Steyn City Golf Course 2026 to 2028. Cabinet approved the hosting of the Live Golf South Africa event to be held from the 19th to the 22nd of March 2026 at the Steyn City Golf Course in Johannesburg. The Live Golf League is a professional men's golf tour featuring leading international golfers competing in a global series of events. Hosting a Live Golf tournament is expected to deliver significant economic and socio-economic benefits, including increased tourism and job creation, whilst also contributing to the promotion and development of golf in South Africa through targeted legacy programs. The event is estimated to generate between 500 million rands to 800 million rands in direct economic impact per event. The Live Golf Legacy Program, aimed at empowering young people through access, inspiration, and professional development opportunities, will be implemented in two phases. Phase 1, around Southern Grounds Golf Club and the Steyn City Gauteng Academy, and Phase 2 will expand the program's reach to additional communities. Additional Live Golf events are planned for 2027 and 2028, with potential extensions to 2029 and 2030. Human Rights Month. South Africa will commemorate Human Rights Month in March under the theme, A Legacy of Courage, Protecting Rights, Preserving Humanity. This year marks 30 years since the signing of the Constitution into law. The launch of the 30th anniversary commemoration of the adoption and the signing of the Constitution into law will take place on the 2nd of March 2026 at the Apartheid Museum. This commemoration is an opportunity for all of us to reaffirm that our democracy and freedom remain strong. Cabinet calls on all South Africans to continue to honor the living expression of the nation's collective commitment to constitutional democracy, human rights and freedom, and the rule of law, and to honor the contribution of struggle heroes and heroines to our freedom and democracy. Hosting of the inaugural National Transport Conference. Cabinet approved the hosting of the inaugural National Transport Conference from the 16th to the 18th of March in Johannesburg, Gallagher Estate. The conference will convene South Africa's transport sector to address challenges and develop solutions. The conference is expected to attract 750 delegates from South Africa and the SADC community and the broader international community. The conference aims to build a shared vision for the role of transport in South Africa's socio-economic development, mobilize stakeholders around a common transport agenda. It will also promote knowledge sharing, draw on international and local research, and explore innovative transport technologies and digital solutions to improve the performance and competitiveness of the country's transport system. Armed Forces Day. President Cyril Ramaphosa, as Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force, addressed the Armed Forces Day in the Bembe District Municipality on the 21st of February 2026. Armed Forces Day is commemorated annually in remembrance of the sinking of the SS Mendi and to honor all soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving the Republic outside our borders and in internal operations. It is a day to pay tribute to the courage of those who wear uniform, who serve to safeguard our nation and her people. Cabinet joins President Ramaphosa in paying tribute to the members of the National Labour Corps who lost their lives in the sinking of the SS Mendi on the 21st of February 1917 during the First World War. Their bravery, defiance, and unity in the face of death reverberates through time, and their courage and spirit continue to inspire us today. On messages, we start with condolences. Cabinet extended condolences to the families and friends of human rights activist and anti-apartheid struggle stalwart, Reverend Dr. J.C. Jackson Sr. South Africa has lost a principled ally. Reverend J.C. Jackson's memory is bound to our story of freedom and was among those who raised their voices against apartheid at a time when many looked away. In 2013, a democratic South Africa honored him with the National Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo in silver. Dr. John Polani, the 5th Bishop of Bantu Church of Christ, Ibandla likaKristu laBantu, who was a principled and compassionate servant of the people and the church in South Africa and the SADC region. He served as a fountain of knowledge and a source of great counsel to many people in this country. He consistently promoted unity, dignity, ethical leadership, and social cohesion, earning the respect of people from all walks of life. The family and friends of Hosi Dr. Philia Tinyiko Mwamitwa II, a leader, a pioneer, and a great daughter of the soil who had an illustrious career as an educator and was a seasoned political activist. She was a steadfast advocate for women's rights and a powerful voice against gender-based violence, and most recently, she accepted an invitation to be a member of the Eminent Persons Group, which is entrusted with guiding and advising on the national dialogue. But she is the first female chief of the Batsonga Machangana people after she took the matter to the Constitutional Court to fight for her rights to succeed her father as a chief in a culture where only men would succeed on the throne. We also send our condolences to the family and friends of the futurist Clem Stantner, whose high road, low road scenario challenged South Africa to confront the consequences of its political and economic choices. His work gave the country a framework for imagining a better future at a time when the future was far from certain. pioneering Lebanese-born Palestinian diplomat and activist Leila Shahad, who made history as Palestine's first woman ambassador. Through her distinguished service to the PLO and the Palestinian Authority in Ireland, the Netherlands, and France, she became one of the most respected voices for Palestinian self-determination on the world stage. May their souls rest in peace. On congratulations, we extend our congratulations and well wishes to the Proteas for advancing to the Super 8 stage of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka. We wish them well in their quest to book a place in the semi-final. We also send our well wishes to the Christian and Muslim communities as they observe Lent and Ramadan respectively. Cabinet joined the President Ramaphosa in extending best wishes to the Christians for Lent and to the Muslims for Ramadan, the holy season in all religions. I'll need to also explain that from now on, post-cabinet briefings are going to be once a month, because cabinet is only going to sit once a month to allow ministers to do work and not be stuck in meetings, and also to allow the committees that have to process submissions to cabinet to do their work. So we are focused on more delivery, and therefore the meetings of cabinet are going to be once a month. So do not ask that there's no cabinet briefing, we are running away from whatever. We are not. We have just made a cabinet. The president, as the chairperson of cabinet, has decided that we are going to be more effective if we chase implementation and then go and report on progress. So cabinet will be meeting once a month from now on. And we'll convene special briefings for special cabinet meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the comprehensive feedback. Let me immediately invite questions by way of the media center here, and then we will go to online. The drill is the same. Let me note the 3 hands as they are, 1, 2, 3, and then recognize them in that order. Press the red button there, and then go straight to your questions.
Just a direct question. On the bringing back of the gentleman from KwaZulu Natal who are back in the country from Russia, what were the engagements of the South African government, in particular President Ramaphosa or President Putin, in relation to these men? How far is the investigation on this particular matter? There are allegations that certain individuals, 3 of them whom charges have been laid against by one of the eldest daughters of the former president, received 14 million rands for human trafficking, selling of these particular men. We also understand the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamuna, is in KwaZulu-Natal now meeting with the families and these gentlemen. What are the contents of this particular discussion that the Minister is having with the families and the gentlemen who have now returned back home? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samgelo.
Good morning. Kotatso Madisa here from the Sunday Times. A few questions. I'm not sure how many I'm allowed to ask, but let's give it a shot. On the deployment of the military, Minister, our understanding was that the President had given the commanders of state security, the military, the army, as well as the SAPs, about 10 days to complete the operational plan, which should be sent to him with costs, which the President would then use to inform Parliament. But when we check the ATC, he doesn't seem to have informed Parliament yet. Is there a reason for this? When is he planning on informing Parliament? And also, maybe just for clarity's sake, is the President able to deploy the army onto the street and then only inform the Parliament at a later stage? Maybe just assist us with that. And then secondly, the Water Crisis Committee that will now be chaired by the President, is it a different one to the one that was chaired by the Deputy President, or is he taking that one over? And if he is, what should we make of And then I think maybe let me just ask this lastly. The cabinet seems to be moving with a bit more aggression, based on the statement, around transformation and BEE. I mean, you gave us stats about the difference between black households, income in the black households versus that in white households, and the reforms around BEE. Is it because some of the GNU partners, including the DA, have been criticizing triple BEE and essentially called for its removal? Is this indirect response to that? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moloko Mloto from ENCA. Maybe let me start by augmenting the question by my colleague from the Sunday Times on the National Water Crisis Committee and say, what is the difference between the National Water Crisis Committee, which will be chaired by the President, and the Water Task Team, which was, or presumably still chaired by the Deputy President, besides the fact that now the President will be part of this. And another direct question there, is this an admission that the Deputy President and his team have failed? The second question relates to the fact that you have said that so far government has been able to recover, I think you said 16.4 billion rand, I stand to be corrected if I miss the figures. But while it is commendable that you are making headway in terms of recovering the mood, what do you make of the pace in terms of the criminal prosecution? Are you happy with that? And also maybe give us an idea, if you have, in terms of the target that you are hoping to recover in the end. And lastly, in regard, I mean, now we are in February. Next month in March, it will be the whole year since Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool was expelled as our ambassador to Washington, D.C. How far is that process of appointing his successor? And a final one on that note is just to get clarity in terms of the arrival of the U.S. ambassador in Pretoria as to whether, where we are now, his credentials have been accepted by our president, or that process is still ongoing, because I'm seeing some reports suggesting that his credentials have been accepted. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister. Maybe we would give you an opportunity and then go from to be the final round. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Samkelo. I just need you to repeat your question that included a sum of money. I couldn't get it properly.
There's an allegation that 14 million rand was paid by the Wagner Group.
Mulo,
There's an allegation that 14 million rand was paid by the Wagner Group to 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐸 Masambu. Was allegedly said by one of the spokesperson of the family in KZN that 14 million rand flowed from the Wagner Group to 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐸 Masambu's hands, and the men, the 17 men, didn't receive a single cent of the money they were promised that they would be paid monthly.
Thank you. Let me start on the question of the returned men. You asked what is the engagement. The Minister of International Relations is indeed in KZN today to meet with the families of the returned men, because as part of our responsibility and consular service, we need to engage with the families. They are the ones who reached out to us to ask for support to ask for assistance to return their young men who they allege that were trafficked to Russia without understanding what they were going to do. So as part of that engagement, as part of that feedback, it's important that you look back to those who requested your assistance to say, here we are, but there are the following things that has to happen. The following things that must happen is the continuation of the investigations into the allegation, including the allegation made by the family, a family member, that 14 million rands was paid to a certain person by the Wagner Group for their sons to be taken to Russia to go to fight in a war that is not theirs. And therefore, it's important that the minister also engage. But there are investigations that are ongoing to establish the facts, as we've indicated, in terms of what has happened, what has transpired. What we know for sure is that there were payments that were made. So the investigators will have to establish who received the money and for what purpose and what they did with that money. So those investigations are out. A cabinet cannot have a view on those, but the investigations are ongoing. At the right moment, the law enforcement officers will then update the country. On President Ramaphosa's engagement with President Putin, when the South African teams were engaging with the Russians, it became very clear that the arrangements were not with the Russian government. But as the South African authorities, we could not have access to those people. And part of the challenge was that these young men were made to sign contracts, and that bound them into a time period. And for those contracts to be signed, there were payments made. So the parties that contracted them declined to release them without payment. And it's for that reason President Ramaphosa went to President Putin to say, we accept that it's not the Russian government that has recruited South Africans, but we need your intervention to get our young people back. As we have indicated in the statement, some of them have been injured, and we could not risk them dying in Russia. So we brought them back through the intervention of the President of the Republic with President Putin, and that's why we extended our appreciation. The State of the Nation address was on the 12th. Today we are on the 26th, and 10 working days. But just for the update, but there's 10 working days that were indicated that the President requested an operational plan. The operational plan has been submitted. It was considered by the National Security Council. And that operational plan is not only an operational plan, it's supported by the National Organized Crime Combating Strategy. And so that plan has been submitted. The National Security Council has satisfied itself. In terms of the law, the President can deploy without waiting for Parliament and then inform Parliament. Because imagine if the President can only deploy after informing Parliament, what would happen in cases of emergency? So that is the process. And we are glad that we have been following up on the ATC process so that you can keep us on check. There was a question around the Water Crisis Committee vis-a-vis the Water Task Team. If you'll recall, when the President was explaining, was to say there are a number of interventions that have been undertaken in the country around water. Some have given us progress, some has not given us progress. We've made progress with reviewing the legislation, because the legislation that governed water or regulated water provision in South Africa limited the ability of national government to intervene and gave the water reticulation responsibilities to water authorities, which are metros and district municipalities. We had to make the amendments to get on the Water Services Act to make sure that we can be able to do the interventions. So that progress has been made. That work was done under Operation Vulindlela. You'll recall that water was part of the reforms that we needed to do. That work was done through Operation Vulindlela and the Department of Water and Sanitation. But the DP was leading a task team that was assessing the state of water challenges confronting the country and proposing interventions. That task team has done its work and continues to do the work. So the work done by that task team will then be collapsed into the work of the Water Crisis Committee, so that we do not start from the beginning. But now we are at an emergency mode. And for the emergency mode, you need a Water Crisis Committee. As the President has indicated, he's going to run the Water Crisis Committee in line with the mechanisms that we run the Vulindlela reforms program. And that's the difference, because the Water Task Team was doing its work in a particular way, and now we are moving into the Vulindlela approach. And because the President has always led Vulindlela, supported by the Minister of Finance and the Minister in the Presidency. And we've got a PMO that which includes Presidency and National Treasury and other sectors that come in. So in this one, we're going to have the Department of Water and Sanitation in that mode. So it's not an admission of a failure by the task team. There's no failure of the task team. They've done incredible work in doing the assessment, so the base work that needs to be done, including some of the reforms that have already been undertaken. They were undertaken on the basis of the work done by the water task team. But now we do a step change and we move faster so that we can have water in the taps. If you recall, the Water Crisis Committee will focus on short-term measures to make sure water comes out of the taps, and also as we move the stabilization. There are a number of things. The Minister of Finance announced metro trading entities, the ring fencing of revenues from water and electricity to make sure the revenue collected by municipalities, metros in particular, can be reinvested into the water services, including in municipalities, the ring fencing of the water revenue to reinvest into the water, and the electricity infrastructure. Because a major part of what we are facing in the country is not the lack of water at a bulk level, is the problem of water losses, what they call non-revenue water. If you go and check, majority of municipalities, there are more than 50% of their water is lost through the pipes that are leaking. And therefore, part of the reinvestment will need to fix the infrastructure to make sure that the water, that we reduce the non-revenue water. And in addition to that is to also build capacity in municipalities to deliver on the water. At the non-metro municipalities, the Minister of Finance announced the split delivery model, where in municipalities with no capacity to render services, there will be an agency that takes over that function, a certified and accredited agency to deliver the function, so that we've got capable people. And I think when the President was talking about the water crisis, he also referred to the need to mobilize the human resource capacity, the engineering capacity that's needed to run such services as water and electricity and building, so that we've got those competencies in the municipalities. We've got a shortage of engineers in the country, so part of the work that is being done is to support the TVET colleges and the university to produce more engineers. But it means strengthening the STEM subjects at a school level to make sure that they can then be trained. And there was they said, you say we're moving with aggression on transformation. It's not because of any political party. Everybody accepts that a South Africa that is unequal, it's a South Africa that will be unstable. And therefore, government, the pace of transforming must then take a step change and be quicker. Because to date, as we speak, we're saying 41% of the middle income stream includes black people, but that's not proportional to the population of the country. We need to increase that, and we can no longer take another 31 years to get to the transformation targets. And that's why we are monitoring them closely, but the impatience that our people are. It's for that reason that even during our G20 presidency, we focused on eradicating inequality and also eradicating poverty. And it's for that reason that we are progressing, so that the country can be prosperous. There will never be a prosperous South Africa when majority of South Africans are poor. Then there was a question of whether we can set a target for the recovery. It's not possible to set a target for the recovery because the recovery is based on investigations and findings. Allegations were made, and those allegations have to be investigated. And when the investigations have concluded, it's for then that you can then recover that which are ill-gotten gains. And then we spoke, there's a question around the U.S. ambassador. The U.S. ambassador has been accredited to South Africa, so he is fully functioning as ambassador. His credentials were received, and the president has indicated that he is considering deploying an ambassador to the USA. It will be unfair to ask me when. It's beyond my pay grade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and also outlining the quite important aspects that you did. Let me take the last round of hands in the house, and then we'll go to online. Let me note your hand. Is it a follow-up? Note your hand and recognize them in that order. We'll start there.
From Russia. Does the fact that they were duped into going on this trip exonerate them from their criminal liabilities in South African law does not allow citizens to go and fight on the side of participate in wars, foreign wars? And tied to that, is the government aware of any South Africans who are also participating in the ongoing genocide there in Israel? One gets the impression that there are people who go there also unlawfully, of course. Are you aware? If you are, what are the numbers? And secondly, still on Israel, please clarify the nature of our South Africa's current relationship with Israel. We know there's been a decision to close their embassy here, but it's still there. That the chief diplomat has been expelled. I believe they also retaliated. Is the government having cold feet on implementing the decision to close the embassy? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right. Moloko, once again, just 3 quick questions. When in instances where say a municipality, let's say a local municipality and the district municipality both do not have capacity to implement those infrastructure work that's needed, and I hear you, and I think I also heard the minister saying there will be an agency that will take over. I'm trying to determine whether that there's going to be a newly created agency that will be doing that work countrywide. As we have seen in Gauteng, they announced an infrastructure agency during the SOPA, or you are going to rely mainly on the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency, which already exists. If you can just clarify that. And have you been able, in terms of efforts to reduce unemployment? Yes, there is that little progress, but have you been, as Cabinet, able to determine the actual impediments that are stopping aggressive work towards creating jobs? Lastly, on the fact that Cabinet has been able to determine factually that money has been paid, and of course you are correctly saying investigations will have to continue in regard to that Russia situation. what is the law saying? I'm just thinking here, when somebody, if that person happens to be a South African, the one who received money, what's the law saying in regard to that, the possible charges that such a person is likely to face?
Are you fine?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Minister, I'm not sure. I don't see any hands. I'll try to get your guidance. Should we go on the online one in case some of them are?
How many are online?
TK, how many do we have online?
There are 7 in total.
Your guidance, please.
Let me just put this one.
Okay. Now we'll take the response of the questions that are asked, and then we'll come to the ones on online.
Thank you. The question around whether government is aware of people fighting in Israel against the Palestinians. Can we disclose the numbers? We cannot disclose the numbers. The relations between Israel and South Africa, we demarched their ambassador and also expelled the ambassador because they were he was disrespectful to the country, and is not how and in violation of the Vienna Convention. And Israel responded, and that's where we are. And we are not threatened by anyone. We are not having any cold feet. We implement, in terms of our foreign policy, what's in the best interest of South Africa, and will never be disrespected in our own country. And then the question around the district, and in the event where the district and local municipality both do not have capacity, and what the agencies are, the new agencies. Now, let me give you a classic example. You've got water, and you've got water boards. And I just want to use that example. For example, you'll find that the water board would have capacity to even do the reticulation services. So in that instance, the water board will step in. That's what we're calling accredited service institutions. In terms of infrastructure, let's use the example of roads. And me and you come from Limpopo. You may find that the road agency Limpopo has more capacity than the municipality. Then they will step in, or Sandral will step in. If you recall, in 2024, towards 2025, Sandral stepped in to assist the municipality of Mahikeng to do internal streets because they did not have the capacity, and they wanted to, and Sandral helped them to build that capacity, but also deliver those services. So it's those examples. So that's why we're saying accredited agencies. We know, because the risk of starting something new is that you are going to have a challenge of it setting up establishment and so forth, and we do not have time. Our people don't have services, and we need to make sure that our people have services. Underlying causes to the unemployment. The first thing is that the economy has not been growing at the rate that it was supposed to. It's only of recent that we have seen the revision. If you recall, we were hovering at 1.1% a growth target, 1.2. It's only when the reforms, the structural reforms program under OVI started to make an impact on electricity, on logistics, that they started to be an opening where you moved from 1.2 to 1.4, 1.4 to 1.6, and a projection of a 2% growth. So, and our focus is to make sure that we have an economy that grows, but also that creates jobs. And we are happy with the progress we are making in terms of growing the economy and also creating jobs. Remember, we set ourselves a target of ensuring a 3% economic growth rate by end of the term, which is 2029. And we are confident that we should reach there. And if you listen to the Minister of Finance yesterday, he was very clear that even our projections are very moderate, but we have been revised upwards. Like last year, we were revised upwards by the IMF and the World Bank and others from our projection of a 1.2, and when we were most optimistic, we were at 1.3, and they revised us to 1.4, saying, no, you're going to get to 1.4. So that is the confidence we have. So the major issue is to grow the economy. How are we growing the economy? is sorting out the problems that need to be sorted. We need to sort out, we have sorted out the issue of electricity. There are areas that still has load reduction. We are sorting that one out. But we want to make sure that industrial base that relies on base load have enough base load to execute. It is for that reason that we announce the support we are giving to the reopening of the smelters around the electricity. Again, for an industry that grows, if you recall in 2023, 2024, mining companies said they could not export their ores after they've mined them because of the logistics problems in our ports, in particular at Durban. And the interventions have been made around through the National Logistics Committee to unlock the Transnet, and Transnet performance is not yet at the right level, but there has been incremental improvements. We are happy with the progress that Transnet is making, because for you for economy to work, you need to be able to export and also to import. So when we are exporting, it's better for us. So the ports are starting to open up, but also the ability to carry goods from wherever is the production area to the ports is important, and that's why the corridors, the rail corridors have to be improved so that you can ship cheaper, so that your goods become competitive. So we are working on that, and we have accepted that you cannot have an economy that grows without fighting crime, and organized crime has been a major challenge, and that's why the interventions that are being made to fight organized crime. We read the statistics that are where we are recording improvements on contact crimes like murder and so forth. But now we are focusing on the big guys, the ones who make sure that there's illicit trade, who take over our sites, who do all sorts of things to make sure the country does not work. We are going to sort it out. It is for that reason that we announced program under OV what the...
Yes. Well, thank you very much. Minister, I'm not sure, I don't see any hands. I'll try to get your guidance. Should we go on the online one, in case some of them are...
How many are online?
TK, how many do we have online?
There are 7 in total.
No guidance, Minister.
Let me just close this one.
Okay. Now we'll take the response of the questions that are asked, and then we'll come to the ones on online.
Thank you. The question around whether government is aware of people fighting in Israel against the Palestinians. Can we disclose the numbers? We cannot disclose the numbers. The relations between Israel and South Africa, we demarched their ambassador and also expelled the ambassador because they were disrespectful. He was disrespectful to the country, and is not how and in violation of the Vienna Convention. And Israel responded, and that's where we are. And we are not threatened by anyone. We are not having any cold feet. We implement, in terms of our foreign policy, what's in the best interest of South Africa, and will never be disrespected in our own country. And then the question around the district, and in the event where the district and local municipality both do not have capacity, and what the agencies are, the new agencies. Now, let me give you a classic example. You've got water, and you've got water boards. And I just want to use that example. For example, you'll find that the water board would have capacity to even do the reticulation services. So in that instance, the water board will step in. That's what we're calling accredited service institutions. In terms of infrastructure, let's use the example of roads. And me and you come from Limpopo. You may find that the road agency Limpopo has more capacity than the municipality. Then they will step in, or Sandral will step in. If you recall, in 2024, towards 2025, Sandral stepped in to assist the municipality of Mahikeng to do internal streets because they did not have the capacity, and they wanted to, and Sandral helped them to build that capacity, but also deliver those services. So it's those examples. So that's why we're saying accredited agencies. We know, because the risk of starting something new is that you are going to have a challenge of its setting up, establishment, and so forth, and we do not have time. Our people don't have services, and we need to make sure that our people have services. Underlying causes to the unemployment. The first thing is that the economy has not been growing at the rate that it was supposed to. It's only of recent that you have seen the revision. If you recall, we were hovering at 1.1% growth target, 1.2. It's only when the reforms, the structural reforms program under OV started to make an impact on electricity, on logistics, that they started to be an opening where you moved from 1.2 to 1.4, 1.4 to 1.6, and a projection of a 2% growth. So, and our focus is to make sure that we have an economy that grows, but also that creates jobs. And we are happy with the progress we are making in terms of growing the economy and also creating jobs. Remember, we set ourselves a target of ensuring a 3% economic growth rate by end of the term, which is 2029. And we are confident that we should reach there. And if you listen to the Minister of Finance yesterday, he was very clear that even our projections are very moderate, but we have been revised upwards. Like last year, we were revised upwards by the IMF and the World Bank and others from our projection of a 1.2, and when we were most optimistic, we were at 1.3, and they revised us to 1.4, saying, no, you are going to get to 1.4. So that that is the confidence we have. So the major issue is to grow the economy. How are we growing the economy? Is sorting out the problems that need to be sorted. We need to sort out, we have sorted out the issue of electricity. There are areas that still has load reduction. We are sorting that one out. But we want to make sure that industrial base that relies on base load have enough base load to execute. It is for that reason that we announce the support we are giving to the reopening of the smelters around the electricity. Again, for an industry that grows, if you recall in 2023, 2024, mining companies said they could not export their ores after they've mined them because of the logistics problems in our ports, in particular at Durban. And the interventions have been made around through the National Logistics Committee to unlock the Transnet, and Transnet performance is not yet at the right level, but there has been incremental improvements. We are happy with the progress that Transnet is making, because for economy to work, you need to be able to export and also to import. So when we are exporting, it's better for us. So the ports are starting to open up, but also the ability to carry goods from wherever is the production area to the ports is important, and that's why the corridors, the rail corridors have to be improved so that you can ship cheaper, so that your goods become competitive. So we are working on that, and we have accepted that you cannot have an economy that grows without fighting crime, and organized crime has been a major challenge, and that's why the interventions that are being made to fight organized crime. We read the statistics that are where we are recording improvements on contact crimes like murder and so forth. But now we're focusing on the big guys, the ones who make sure that there's illicit trade, who take over our sites, who do all sorts of things to make sure the country does not work. We are going to sort it out on that part. So those are the things that are underlying an economy that must grow so that we can create jobs, and we are working on it. Possible charges. I can't speak on possible charges. I'm not a prosecutor. Otherwise, they will go to court and say, Minister Ntshavheni said they must be charged by this, so I can't speak. But there is a violation of the Foreign Military Military Assistance Act. And so you can go and read what the Act provides for, but I cannot speculate on what are the possible charges. It's not my space. I don't have the competence, and it's for law enforcement to do the investigations and the prosecution to determine the relevant charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We will then go direct into the online questions. Tagalani.
Thank you, Mr. Vic. The first question is from Susan Kombre, representing Ama Bongane, and the question is: 2 weeks ago, the interim CEO of Petro SA left with immediate effect, and it's unclear whether she resigned or was removed. It seems inconceivable that the departure of the CEO of a major state-owned entity did not make it into Cabinet's agenda. And the question therefore is, was Cabinet provided with reasons for a sudden exit? Did she resign or was she removed? And the further question is, has Cabinet raised this issue of Petro SA's leadership with the Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources? And if so, what feedback did he provide? And the two questions from Amy Musgrave from Tech Central. The first one, what was the thinking behind the Finance Minister designating data centers as critical infrastructure? And what will it mean in practice for data center operators? Paul from Bloomberg is asking the number of soldiers that will be deployed. And the last four questions from Bukhali Muroy, representing Good Fate. The first question is, amid the SIU probe into Home Affairs, has Cabinet initiated steps or commitments to ensure the CRL Rights Commission develops mechanisms to curb abuse of religious visas by foreign nationals who enter as religious leaders but engage in ulterior motives and serious criminal activities? The second one, ahead of the Deputy President co-chairing of the SA-China Bilateral Commission in March 2026, has Cabinet directed enhanced technical cooperation with China, particularly in AI, to improve education in rural areas and townships? And has Cabinet supported intensified collaboration to build South Africa's sovereign AI capabilities and reduce the risk of data manipulation from foreign dependency? And the third question, what specific tasks has Cabinet assigned the Minister of Agriculture to prevent future foot and mouth disease outbreaks? Has Cabinet assessed the department's budget to ensure it adequately funds prevention, surveillance, and biosecurity initiatives, especially for smallholder and subsistence farmers? And the last question, has Cabinet evaluated the economic and social impact of the SRD grant? And does Cabinet view it as prudent to continue the grant in its current form this year, with enhancements from the next financial year? Is it deemed fiscally sustainable and effective in supporting the economy and alleviating unemployment? Back to you, Mr. B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Minister, I would invite you, and then, Minister, you might also do the honors of rounding up. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you missed a question. Somebody just forwarded to me from Paul Vichato to say how many soldiers will be deployed. We cannot talk about how many soldiers will be deployed because then we expose our strength and weaknesses. So we won't disclose the number. But what's important is that the soldiers will be deployed in line with the deployment operational plan that has been submitted, which the President will then finalize his submission to Parliament. And then about the CEO of Petro SA, Cabinet does not run Petro SA. But Cabinet, there is a bill that is in Parliament, submitted by Cabinet, to stabilize the state-owned enterprises in terms of governance, in terms of insulating the structures from interferences, that the bill will then regulate. It will establish a SOC. The morning has been too long. It is going to establish an SOC board or council that will then be responsible for appointing boards. The boards will appoint the CEOs and the management, and to make sure that there's continuity and stability. But in terms of details around A CEO of a company, even when it's state-owned, is not in the cabinet's purview. But in terms of stabilizing how the CEO, the SOCs are governed, there is a bill that is in Parliament that is dealing with that, to make sure we deal with these things of continuous changes, but also the appointment. And then there were the question around Minister of Finance thinking when he designated data center as critical infrastructure. It was the president during the State of the Nation address spoke about our plan to digital transformation and in the use of technology to advance and grow our economy. At the core of that is digital infrastructure, your data centers. Because even if you have AI capability, if you've got any other analytics, robotics, you need those things to be not only processed, but you need to have storage, and the data centers are that part, and therefore they are part of critical infrastructure that we need to promote. In an age where advancements, somebody asked a question later around sovereign AI capability, and to say whether we're going to talk to China about it. We will not develop that capabilities if we do not have the data centers in this country that enable us to keep our information here and gain that sovereignty. So that is the reason, and the Minister of Finance was responding to the call by the President in terms of developing our digital, in terms of implementing our digital transformation roadmap that was already approved. So the country will continue to digitalize, and we will then progress in that factor. The meaning, it means that there will be incentives for those who want to invest in data centers to then operate in South Africa and to develop data, to build data centers in South Africa. That is the meaning. In terms of the question of whether the findings of the SIU that implicates religious leaders, more especially who are foreign nationals, in the fraud and corruption, the CRL Rights Commission has been working on that, and I think we need to give them space to conclude their work, and then they will then finalize their report and make recommendations. In terms of our engagement with China, our engagement includes that which economic sectors that are growing, and the digital transformation sector, the digital economy itself, is a critical part of it. So I won't go into details around AI sovereignty and education, using AI to enhance education. We all know benefits of your digitalization and digital transformation for across the sectors, and that's part of, we accept that China is a part of the leading countries, and our partnership with China in that regard, it's important, and those engagements will, our strategic partnership with China includes that focus on digitalization and digital transformation. Whether the cabinet has done an assessment whether the Department of Agriculture has sufficient funds. A cabinet is not a funding committee. Cabinet is a policy decision-making committee. There is a MINCOMBAT, which is the Ministers' Committee on the Budget, which supports the Minister of Finance around the budget, where the Department of Agriculture will make submissions to say this is where we have a shortfall. If you remember, the foot and mouth disease has been classified as a national disaster. Therefore, if they do not have sufficient funding, they will apply to the National Treasury for that funding that will be required. But they first have to reprioritize their own funding that they have to do that. Remember, the vaccination program and the biosecurity program is not a new thing. It's what the department continuously budget for. What we are dealing with now is the scale of the vaccination program and the need to reinforce the biosecurity requirements. And therefore, the department must start by using the resources that have been allocated for that program. If they run short, they know how to submit that. relating to the SRD, SRD was never meant to deal with unemployment. SRD was meant to say there are people who do not have access to any form of income and therefore they are not able to buy the basic of food. And with that, the SRD was put in place. Remember, the SRD was put in place during the time of COVID when people have lost their work and they were not going to even be able to buy the basic foodstuff. And that's why it was put there. But realizing the need and the importance that it's serving for those who do not have access to any other form of a grant, then the president decided to keep the SRD grant in play. And Minister of Finance has indicated that it will remain like that. There are discussions in the country around the basic income grant and related matters. Those discussions continue, and when a decision has been made, the announcement, the relevant announcement will be made. But the SRD, as announced by the Minister of Finance, is proceeding this year, and he has indicated that he has provided for it in his baseline. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I need to really appreciate your patience earlier when we had to allow the head of state to open the National House of Traditional Leaders and Khoisan Act, and we sat together to allow him to address the nation. The traditional and Khoisan leaders are an important segment in our society. They help us to govern, and in this time where we've got foot and mouth disease, they're going to play a very critical role to make sure that there's movement control and the animals do not move across. But they also play a very important a role in building national cohesion, in also making sure that there is governance, proper governance at the areas where they are responsible for. So it's important that we respect them, and I appreciate your support and your patience and indulgence in affording the president an opportunity to open the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Act. Thank you very much. Barna Macher.